On the 19th of March 2016, the National Anti-Badger Call came to Plymouth. I was there to record their demonstration.
Those of you who don't know what the car machine is all about, I do make an apology if you don't. This gentleman in front here has got a board, you hold up for you, and you'll see the comment on there. And that was a comment made by Professor John Bourne. When Professor John Bourne, who would say, I know he's a personal friend of mine, and I would say that I think he's a decent, sympathetic and honest, sincere guy. When he presented the results of the randomised badger culling trial to the government said, what's on that board? We accept your science, John, but we have to offer the farmers a carrot. And that carrot can only possibly be to let them kill badgers. Right, I've handed over to Dominic Dyer from Badger Trust. He won't need an introduction from me. He's been to almost every march we've had so far. So over to Dominic.
Well, welcome the Badger Army to Plymouth! Yay! This is the 34th march we've had for badgers up and down this country, the biggest wildlife campaign of its kind, not just in Britain, but in Europe for decades. The Western Morning News said a few weeks ago in an opinion poll, or an opinion piece, that basically we'd all lost interest in this issue. The public didn't care anymore. Do you care? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's a sign that we're not going away, that we are going to keep fighting this, because we're caring, compassionate people. Now, this week, we've had a big debate about the budget, a big debate about cutting disability allowances for the most vulnerable people in our society. You know what was happening on budget day? Well, the head of the National Farmers Union and Liz Truss were having tea and coffee with David Cameron in Downing Street. And they were talking about more support for farmers to spend your money on culling badgers. Do you think that's right? No. So far, this government has spent the best part of £25 million killing just under 4,000 badgers in the most cruel, disgusting conditions, none of which have been tested for TB. Do any of you think that's good spend for public money when we're taking money away from the most disadvantaged people in this country? No. It's an absolute disgrace. As Mark quite rightly said, there is no science to support the culling of badgers. But this government and this farming lobby are continuing to press on as if this didn't matter. They are going to extend these culls into places like Devon, into Cornwall, into Wiltshire, possibly into Cheshire. We could see 10, 20, 30 new culling areas across this country in the next 4 or 5 years. We could be spending taxpayers' money, 150, 200 million pounds, killing an endangered species to a level where it could actually see local extinction in parts of the country where it's lived for 500,000 years. Do any of you feel that's acceptable? No. And you know what? That's why we went to war, the Badger Trust, with the BBC. That's why Peter Martin, our chairman there, had an excellent letter published in the Times this week. Because we were so damn angry with that first episode of Hope and Glory. Because, yes, they wanted to show a farmer who was having problems with bovine TB in his herd. Yes, it is a big issue for farmers. It has a big social economic impact on their business. It's a concern to taxpayers too. So fine, include it in your programme. But if you do produce a programme of that kind, as a public broadcaster with our money, you better produce some balance in that programme as well. And they failed miserably to do that. That programme basically was incendiary. The farmer in question was being provoked to be angry, to say he wanted to kick badgers, that he blamed badgers, that badgers should be killed. We had the so-called expert on bovine TB, Mark Hedges, the editor of Country Life magazine, no less, telling us that badger culling was necessary, telling us that governments, both Labour and the Tories in the past, had not done enough to deal with this problem, telling us that the actual population of badgers has increased the editorial policy, and he basically stopped, we understand, Brian May even being considered to be interviewed in that programme to provide any balance. Do you think that's right? No. But that's the tip of an iceberg. We are fighting a government, we are fighting increasingly a media, we are fighting a farming lobby that are basing everything to justify this horrible cull on little more than propaganda and lies. If you look back and try and find out if there's any evidence to tell us if badgers can easily pass TB to cattle, you will be finding it very, very difficult. Because there isn't any real evidence at all, as Peter said again in his letter this week to the Times. Let's be clear, there's only one piece of field research ever undertaken by the Ministry of Agriculture, as it once was called before it became DEFRA, and that was in the early 1970s. They basically created a concrete pen half the size of a penalty area, and they stuck in that pen a number of diseased badgers. And over 6, 8 and 10 months, they put calves next to those badgers where they were defecating and urinating in completely artificial conditions, cheek by jowl, and it took 6, 8 and 10 months for any of those calves to find that they had TB. That experiment was not fit for purpose. The vets and the scientists involved accepted that. It was completely artificial. It did not show what would happen in a real farmed environment. Yet that is the only field research that's ever been done to prove a direct connection between badgers spreading TB to cattle. Do any of you think that's acceptable?
No.
We do know there's been some good peer-reviewed research taken in Gloucestershire in the late 1980s, where they actually went out and looked at the action of cattle and the interaction with badgers in the field. And what did they find, to our surprise? That actually badgers very rarely go near cows. And actually where badgers defecate and urinate on pasture, the cows don't eat in that area. And then we've seen more recently very good satellite-collared studies in Ireland where they followed a large number of badgers for over 5 years, and again, they don't interact, they don't go close to each other, they don't eat in the same areas, they're not even going regularly into farmyards. So we're told that badgers and cattle are always interacting, always coming into contact, and always at risk of spreading the disease. It's complete nonsense, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
And that vet that was on Hope and Glory was talking proudly about his work doing the skin test, but what he failed to say is actually the skin test is 1930s technology. 1 in 4, or maybe even 1 in 2 in some cases, of the cattle will go undetected even though they still have TB. They will stay in the herd. Those cattle are kept in large numbers, 500, 600, 1,000 plus in many cases, for 6 and 9 months at a time, cheek by jowl, in damp conditions. We get TB in conditions like that, and cattle do too. That's why this disease spreads. It has nothing to do with badgers. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And that is what we must keep getting across to the public. It's an absolute scandal that we can be wiping out these animals in such a cruel, horrible way when there is no scientific benefit whatsoever. What we're doing is not helping farmers. What we're doing is definitely not helping our wildlife, and what we're doing is not good for us as taxpayers. But what we do know is that there are ways of getting on top of this disease. Last week, the government introduced new pre-movement controls from cattle being moved from high-risk areas to low-risk areas because they were worried about the spread of the disease. They know that the vast majority of the spread of TB is cattle to cattle, 95% plus. Now, these new movement controls, backed up by gamma interferon blood tests, which we know are far more effective, will have a huge impact if they're implemented properly. But what I'd say to you is this: why are we spending hundreds of millions of pounds killing badgers when actually we should be helping farmers? Give them all gamma interferon blood tests to back up the skin test. Give them the money to put the gates and the fences on their farms to stop the interaction of wildlife and cattle. If you do that and put in proper pre-movement controls, plus an annual testing system across the country like Wales has, which the NFU says is too expensive and is not necessary, you will bring this disease under control. By spending the money you're killing badgers, spending it in that way, less of it, we will get on top of this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And it is so important that we win this debate. The government's about to produce a new report called Food Nation, and you'll probably see me popping up on the news in due course talking about how bad that report is. And that's partly what the coffee and biscuits were coming out in Downing Street with our friend the NFU President and Liz Truss and David Cameron this week. Now, Food Nation will say that we are a very important farm food producing nation in Europe, and that we must increase our productivity, and there must be use of innovation and science. We must export more food, we must produce more food. But this report will say very little about the impact of modern farming practices on our wildlife, our habitats and our landscapes. And as Mark quite rightly said, we cannot produce food that comes at the cost of destroying our landscapes and destroying our wildlife. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
It's not right that badgers are being killed so that farmers can export dried milk to infants in China. That is basically what we're seeking to do at the moment with that type of export-led policy. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
We have to keep fighting to make people aware that we can produce food in this country that's good for the environment, good for wildlife, and good for the farmers that need our support, because it's a tough, difficult job, and yes, the nation needs to be fed. But we're not going to be lied to anymore. We're not going to accept this propaganda if it comes from the government, the farming lobby, from the BBC or anywhere else. We will fight back. We will tell the truth. And the fact that you keep coming to towns and cities across this country, large groups of people in their thousands and hundreds from all walks of life, is a sign that we've started something here. It's far bigger than Badgers. This is about the future of our country. It's about who holds power in our countryside as well as in our towns. It's about how we produce food. It's about how we protect animals that have lived in our landscapes for millions of years in some cases, many of which we will never see. But we know they have a right to be there, and we know that they have a right to be protected. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And this cull has been a green light to badger persecution. We said to the BBC, if you encourage farmers to go on television to say that badgers are to blame solely for bovine TB and that they should be persecuted, you are giving a green light to wildlife criminals. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And that's why it's so wrong. We're probably losing, police estimates, 10,000 badgers a year. We're losing them to farmers, landowners, hunt masters, gamekeepers, property developers, and general psychopaths that like to go around the countryside killing animals. And that's not acceptable for me, and I know it's not acceptable for you. And we're going to keep fighting up and down this country to say our wildlife is precious and not one of those animals should be killed. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if George Osborne's going to deregulate to the point you can build houses on every green field, which he would like to do, which is going to mean more badger sets being destroyed. It doesn't matter if this government wants to repeal the fox hunting act, so we'll have foxhounds running around and more badger sets being filled. It doesn't matter if we allow more culling and more persecution. We are going to keep coming, and we are going to keep fighting. We're not going to be silent. We're not going to let the National Farmers Union get away with this. We're not going to let the government get away with this. We're a powerful voice of care and compassion in this countryside. We are waking up not just this country, but the world to the fact that wildlife is precious and should be protected. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Now, I'm proud to be part of this movement. I'm proud to be part of the Badger Trust. But I'm asking you one thing today. Please, if you're not a member of the Trust, please consider joining. We need you as individual supporters. Our groups need you across the country. This species has never been under greater threat than it is today. We need strong groups up and down the country, a firewall of protection for this species, not just today, but for decades to come. When it comes to persecution, when it comes to rescue and rehabilitation, when it comes to vaccinating badgers, opposing the badger cull, protecting against property developers building over sets, we need effective Badger Trust groups. We need you to be in those groups. Please join us, get your friends to join us, and support our campaigns. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
And I'll say this, there's one other big challenge too, and I talked about this when it came to dolphins in London yesterday. For too long, the big NGOs that are powerful and employ thousands of people and take in tens of millions of pounds, and I'll name some of them, WWF, Friends of the Earth, I4, all of these big organisations, World Animal Protection, we need you to stand up for our wildlife, not just abroad, but at home as well. We do appreciate the work you're doing. You're doing important work around the world. But it's no good being silent. It's no good being nervous about your relationships with other government agencies and departments to the point where you allow a badger or any protected species or wildlife in this country to be killed for ignorance and to be killed for economic, political interests above the environment. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Calling on those big NGOs now to begin to support us, because if they do come behind this campaign, if they get their tens of thousands of supporters to be behind that campaign, we will put more pressure on this government. We will have a significant impact where we're able to really put pressure where it matters politically. We know this government have a small majority. We know that they're sensitive. We've seen it already with our friend Ian Duncan-Smith jumping off the bridge, and also now them backing off this issue of disability benefits. We know we can pressurise them. We're not that far away from forcing another debate in the House of Commons. And I'm very pleased to say this. I'm concerned that Labour haven't been fighting hard enough, but I think they're beginning to get the wind in their sails, and I hope they'll now begin to come out and fight harder, because they know they can do something. I hope the Green Party will see that this is an issue for all of their supporters to get behind us. I'm very pleased to say from our discussions with the SNP, they do understand animal welfare matters. That's why they blocked the Fox Hunting Act being repealed. That's why they're telling us they'll continue to try and stop anything in terms of badgers as well, if they have the opportunity. So we need this issue back in the House. We need another debate. There is a petition coming. We're going to ask all of you to sign that. We are going to continue to march and campaign and lobby, but we need to get the pressure back on the politicians. At the end of the day, the EFRA Select Committee, which is there to oversee the environment policy, the Treasury Select Committee, which is there to oversee how taxpayers' money is being spent, must look at this horrible waste of money and say enough is enough. We will not sit by silently and allow politicians to waste money butchering wildlife for no benefit to our farmers' environment. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
We are changing the way people see things. I know at times it feels desperate. I know there are many people down here that think, I don't want to go through another year of going into the fields. I'll say this to you. We need you in the fields. We need you on the badger patrols. We need the hunt saboteurs. We need people to stand up and to be counted. We saw last week those brave hunt monitors being beaten up and left in a ditch. To me, they're heroes. They are the front line of people that are willing to stand up to say we will protect wildlife, even though we're threatened, even though we're intimidated, even though we're going to be beaten up. We ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And if they risk their lives, then we can get onto the marches, we can get onto our MPs, we can get into the fields and give them support as well. We are a proud animal-loving nation, but we must show it, we must keep fighting for it, and we will win it in the end. Keep going, keep fighting. We're going to make some noise in Plymouth today, and we're going to be with you wherever this goes. We're going to keep fighting. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Thank you, Dominic. I think I'd just like to echo the point he made there, and that was that one of the great things for me about the badger patrols and the badger organisations to go around looking for injured badgers in during the culls and that sort of thing is that it's been successful because we've all worked together. A whole range of organisations, and Dominic mentioned one or two of them, the Badger Groups, the Badger Trust, Hunt Saboteur Associations and others. And it's because of that joint effort we've succeeded in saving badgers and will continue to save badgers. Now, if anybody wants to get involved locally with anything that's happening in terms of patrols and things, there are people here with t-shirts on, with badgers and carrots on. They're the people to speak to give your details to them. They'll be quite pleased to hear from you. Well, what's going to happen now is we're going to go for a march around Plymouth. It's going to take about an hour. Any of you have got trains to catch and that sort of thing, we're going to be about an hour marching. We intend to come back here, and I'm told then we're going to be entertained by the Bluesy Bock Band. Is that correct? Got it right, thank goodness. I make an emphasis again, I said Bluesy Bock Band, not rock, Bock, not rock band. So, thank you all again. We've got to continue to fight. I was at a conference last weekend for Borders Against Wildlife Crime. They're talking about the hen harrier persecution. And the guy speaking there was talking about the situation with the river grouse shooting up in the northern part of this country. And he was saying that we collectively we are making a change, we are making a difference. Dominic has outlined some of the great movements that have happened in recent time. We will go on fighting, we will go on being a thorn in the side of the establishment I talked about earlier. Because we've got to change that establishment. We can no longer be dictated to by feudal barons and feudal lords in the disguise of government, NFU and the media. And we've all heard about the BBC, the way they've ignored people, and they've ignored the balance in the programmes of recent time. So we've got to go on fighting, we've got to go on being a thorn in our sides. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll come back here for the Bluesy Bock Band. Thank you.
Save our badgers! Stop the cull! Save our badgers! Stop the cull! Save our badgers! Stop the cull!
Wildlife Festival on this year's budget, so well, good work.
Save our badgers! Stop the cull! 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 Stop the cull! Save our badgers! Stop the cull! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Stop the cull! 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 Save our badgers! Stop the cull!
Wait.
Stop the cull! Save our badgers! Stop the cull! Stop the cull! Stop the cull! Save our badgers! 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 Stop the cull! Stop the cull! Stop the cull! Stop the cull!
Now realise this.
Save our badgers!
Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers! Save our badgers!
Now these animals have lived in this area of the world for over 500,000 years, and most of you will never see one unless it's dead by the side of the road. But what gives us the right? What gives us the right to kill these animals in the most horrible way when it doesn't help any farmer to deal with the disease of bovine TB? Would you agree? Yes. And we're here because this is the 34th march we've had in towns and cities across this country. In London, Birmingham, Leeds, Stratford-upon-Avon, Brighton, Hastings, you name it, we've been there. This is the biggest wildlife campaign anywhere in Europe in decades. It's bringing thousands of people together, and we're making a stand. We're saying enough is enough. We will stand up to protect our wildlife. It's precious for us, and it's precious for future generations. And we won't let politicians or our farming industry play politics with it to kill it. Wouldn't you agree? Yes! And we're caring, compassionate people. We're from all backgrounds and walks of life, but we're united in one thing. We care about animals, because how we care for animals has a lot of influence about how we care for people too. Wouldn't you agree? Yes! If we're horrible to wildlife, if we're cruel to animals, then we'll be cruel to people too. Wouldn't you agree? Yes! We want to support farmers. Farmers around the West Country are an important part of the economy, but we cannot support the production of milk and meat if it comes at the cost of destruction of our wildlife. Wouldn't you agree? Yes! So we're saying to the politicians here, the local MPs, the national politicians, the council, that we will fight this badger cull. We will be in the fields, we will be in the streets, we'll fight it in the media studios, we'll fight it in Westminster, we'll fight it in the courts. but we will not go quiet. We will not sit silently by and allow these beautiful animals that are endangered and protected to be destroyed. Would you agree? Yes! So let's make some more noise. Let everyone know in this city that the Badger Army is here to stay. It's going to march on, it's going to get stronger, and we're going to stop this horrible policy, and we're going to protect these animals for the future, and we're going to be a beacon to the world for care and compassion for our wildlife. Wouldn't you agree? Yes! Thank you.
This has been a Christopher.summerfield media production documentary 2016. You can contact me through Facebook and Twitter. You can also sponsor me and support me through PayPal at Christopher.summerfield@gmail.com. Thanks for watching the video.